Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
And now to our guest of the week. He is the in-house counsel, the attorney for the World Boxing Organization, also known as the WBO. Sometimes people don't know the actual full name of these sanctioning bodies. They just know them by the acronyms, such as this one, WBO. We've been in contact with him for quite a few months, and we finally followed up and were able to schedule him to come on the show. Gustavo Olivieri Miranda joins us on the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for joining us, Gustavo.
How are you guys? Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So, as I mentioned with your title, you're the in-house counselor for the WBO. But let's rewind a little bit from there, and kind of start maybe when you were a little younger. Did you always want to be in law? Or is that something you kind of fell into? Kind of walk us through your adolescent days.
I used to be very talented in basketball, baseball, sports, etc. Primarily basketball in youth. I would say that I also had talent with music. I'm a musician as well. I started after high school, I think. My undergrad was in music education, and I have an older brother who is an attorney, and the music business didn't go as planned, and primarily from my hometown. I am from the west side of the island, a city called Mayagüez, which is like a 2.5-hour drive from San Juan, which is the capital city of Puerto Rico, and the music gigs were not as good as in the capital city, like in the major cities, as in every country. And I remember my dad, he was always leave the music alone, go keep studying, become a lawyer, follow the footsteps of your older brother. And thereafter, I had an accident returning home from a music gig. I fell asleep on the wheel, and that's when I had like a how do you say that in English? Like a turning.
An epiphany?
Yeah, an epiphany. Like, hey, man, stop the music. Keep doing it as a hobby. Try to do something more, more professional, maybe more, something like that. And I decided to pursue a degree in law school, right? So the benefit I had at that time was that my oldest brother had already gone through law school. So he gave me some tips, the do's and don'ts of law school. Don't waste your time, the partying, the girls, all that stuff. Just focus on finishing the degree. Prepare for the bar in advance, because in Puerto Rico, in order to become a licensed attorney, you need to pass a bar exam that takes 3 days, the test. So you got one day of the test is essay questions, answering essay questions. A second day is multiple choice selection, and the third day is another type of bar, which is to become a public notary, right? So I did the law school thing. Thankfully, amen, I passed the bar in the first attempt, and thereafter I started practicing law with my brother. He has a firm back in my hometown. I started practicing criminal law, litigation, right? I think I had the ability of such a practice, but I wasn't completely satisfied, because I had, it has its pros and cons, but I was a new kid within a lot of experienced lawyers, older people, and I had this bad, circumstance that I had a brother who also practiced at the same forum where I practice. So if I entered the courtroom, let's say courtroom 101, the judge already knew my brother. right? Okay, this is junior coming to the courthouse, junior here, junior there. So I didn't have, I was I was my brother's shadow. I don't know if you get
Right.
me. And I didn't feel, so good with that. So I said to myself, well, I want to do something different. I want to pursue my own, my own path. And I've always liked sports, and I liked boxing at the time as a casual fan. I knew maybe the big fighters boxing: Tito Trinidad, Miguel Cotto, Juan Lopez, Ivan Calderon, or our stars here from Puerto Rico, Tyson Lewis, De La Hoya, Pacquiao, all those, the big fighters that had, that transcend the sport. I had an idea who they were, etc. But I had no clue how the business worked and the inner workings of the industry, etc. So after a couple of years of doing law practice, I decided to pursue another degree, like graduate degree in sports entertainment and law in Georgetown in DC. So I moved there for almost a year. And the program had an interesting format whereby you had to take some courses in theory, right? But before you graduate from the program, you had to do an internship practicum course. In other words, the school served as a liaison with different sports entities or law firms that represented athletes or sports organizations, etc. So I remember the school had the Washington Nationals, baseball, right? They had football, and they had soccer and other sports. But most of the positions that were available were social things within the institutions, ticket selling, marketing. There were none related to law. So I was like, oh man, I'm already a licensed attorney. I have a couple of years of practice, of experience. If I want to do like an internship, I would like to do it as a lawyer. Maybe working with contracts, drafting contracts, arbitration. I don't know, the legal stuff. So, like 6 months before the completion of the degree, I asked my academic advisor if I could propose to the program, right? Doing an internship with a boxing entity or a law firm that represented boxers or whatnot. I remember he said, that's interesting. We don't have any boxing, entries or with positions or relationship with any boxing institution or something related with it. If you prepare a proposal, we'll review it and we'll let you know. Thereafter, I started making contacts with different promoters, Golden Boy Top Rank, Boxing Commission here in Puerto Rico, just reaching out through email, calling, but there were no vacancies, no openings, nothing. I remember Top Rank, one of their secretaries, I think, told me, "Hey, kid, there's nothing here. Don't call anymore." The Puerto Rican Boxing Commission, they requested that I submit my CV. My
resume.
Yeah, the resume. I submitted it, but no answer, no response. I recall Golden Boy not even answer the email or phone. And I saw on the website, one boxing related website, I saw the WBO. That's when I reach out. And a nice lady by the name of Doris Company, who still works in the company, she says, "Send me your resume. I'll refer it to the president's office, and we'll go from there." I started, following up through email, phone. And I got the gig thereafter. It's a very crazy story how I got the gig, but that's basically how I got the gig. I started pushing, calling in, until the lady said, "Hey man, don't call here anymore. Call the president directly. Hear his phone. Don't call here anymore." And I just follow up on that and other stuff that happened thereafter, and I got the gig, at least the internship.
So the WBO was the only one who kind of gave you any type of response, and obviously a position. You said Golden Boy, you didn't really get a response from them. Top Rank was like, get out of here, kid. Like, was there anybody else that kind of gave you enough, like you might have had a chance to go there?
Nobody. Basically, before I reached out, I checked in their websites for job vacancies, openings. Nobody had, right? So I just said, well, let's try to think out of the box. I'll call, maybe ask for an email, follow up with another email or call just to demonstrate that I'm willing and interested, right? And it's an internship. I'm not gonna, I can't receive a penny. I got to do the hours. The school the school in my program pays for everything, so it's free personnel for them, and a learning experience for me. The only one that answered at least was the WBO, and I remember when Paco, the president, Francisco Valcarcel, Paco, he's also an attorney. I remember when I got the call from the BO on, I think it was on a Monday, right? And they said, can you come on a Tuesday for an interview? And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. What time? Okay, come at 10 a.m. I remember I was back home. I think we were in some sort of recess from school. I had my beer huge. I needed a haircut. I had no suit, jacket, or tie. So I had to, make some errands here and there, get a tie, a fresh suit, trim my beard, get a haircut. And I remember I took my car. I asked for my brother's car and drove like 3-hour drive from my hometown to San Juan to get there on time for the interview. And Paco came in, hey, how you doing? It's a pleasure. He sat down, and it was a very bizarre interview, to say the least. I remember he started saying, do you have enemies? Something like that. And I was like, I don't know. Thus far, I don't know of that I have enemies. He asked me whether I used to, if I did drugs, if I was married, had kids, why was I leaving from a legal practice in my hometown to come to San Juan? We talked about boxing, maybe one or two questions about boxing. But it was and he looked at my shoes. Suddenly he said, oh, those shoes are well shined. That's good. You look sharp. How much I have to pay you? And I was like, no. You don't have to pay me anything. No, but you're already a licensed attorney. You have some sort of experience. How much I have to pay you for the internship? No. You don't have to pay me anything. I just want an opportunity to learn and give me a chance. So, he like poker face, and he said, okay, I have a couple of things to sort out. I'll let you know. So I was, I said to myself, okay, let's see what happens. I said, thank you. And afterwards I called again the office like two or three more weeks to Ms. Doris. Hey, did the president made a decision? No, they're still interviewing other candidates. Okay. I just want to make sure that, you guys know that I'm here. I'm truly interested in having a chance. And I called him directly, and he answered the phone, which I was not expecting because he's always so busy, always traveling. And he said, hey, Gustavo, how you doing? I'm in a meeting. Call me like in 2 hours. I call him like 2 hours and a half late. He answered again, hey, I'm still in a meeting. I'll call you later, he said. And I said to myself, well, that's like, don't call me, I'll call you type of thing, But he called back, man. He was like, hey, how much I have to pay you? And I'm like, hey, sir, counselor, right? Counselor, you don't have to pay me. I just want the chance. Okay, so when can you start? I can start tomorrow. Okay, come on Monday. So I started, that was basically, my circumstances to enter the WBO.
And kind of rewind it a little bit. You talked about not wanting to be in the shadow of your brother. Mm-hmm. When your brother found that out, like, did he always know that you were kind of like in, like, I don't want to call it jealousy, but maybe it's like a little competitiveness with him?
Yes, yeah. And that was something natural because those were my circumstances. I had a brother. We were practicing at the same forum. We had the same type of practice, criminal law. And I remember when I got the gig in the internship, he was a little bit, disappointed because he said, Gustavo, you're earning significant income as a lawyer. Excuse me. You're single. You don't have no kids. You don't have no financial obligations. So you're developing on your peak. What are you doing? And I told him, his name is Gabriel. We call him Gabby. I told him, Gabby, I want to do something different. I don't want to be just an attorney going to different courthouse and watching it and just practicing a DUI here, domestic violence here, weapons charge, attempted murder, those type of things. I wanted something more challenging and maybe out of the box. And he said, well, just try, but consider that you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And I said, well, that's true, but I wasn't satisfied at that time, nor happy with what I was doing, So I said, let me try this. And I got the gig as an intern. I remember I had to do 40 hours a month, right? Once I got the gig, I submitted the proposal to Georgetown. And they were like in shock. Oh, wow, boxing. What is this? What is a sanctioning body? And they were like very supportive. But there was one thing. I was on site, and I had to be in Puerto Rico to do the internship. So I requested like a special permit to continue my last months in Georgetown on online courses. And they gave me the okay. So I moved back home. I didn't have an apartment in San Juan at that time, nor a place to stay. And I traveled from Monday to Friday, every day, almost 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in back to do the internship, right? It was brutal, man, brutal. I did that like for the first 3-4 months, and my back was killing me. I had a truck, US sports utility truck by that time. I was getting to sleep on the wheel. But I was tripling the hours, right? Instead of doing 4 hours a day, I was doing 9 through 5, 8:30 to 5. I wanted to show them, man, I'm putting the work in. I want to learn. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And it paid off.
And at what point, how long were you there before Paco was like, okay, how much do I got to pay you now? It seems like you proved yourself. So
interesting enough, I started the gig in August, right? And I'm not sure if you're aware, August, September, October are hurricane seasons here in the Caribbean. And after a month in the internship, we had Hurricane Maria. You remember Hurricane Maria?
Yeah.
One of the largest hurricane we've ever witnessed, destroyed the island literally from east to west. So within a month in the internship, Hurricane Maria passes through the island, and literally we're shut down. No power, no water, blackout. So I said to myself, well, it's over, man. The internship, there's no power. I would need to return to the U.S. to finish, my degree, whenever that's possible, because there are no, I remember I had to go back home, and my oldest brother, his firm was flooded with water, right? Hey, Gustavo, let's go to the office. We got to pull some water out. And one of the days that we were cleaning, he got the power back, right? And because his office was located near a hospital. So the hospitals had priority with energy and that stuff, right? The power outing and all that stuff. And I took a break. I went online on Twitter and I saw a post from Paco, the WBO, saying, Attorney Olivieri, call this number whenever you can. So I got excited that moment. I remember the office was like from my home in Iowa. So I took a car. It took me like an hour because there was so much traffic. It was chaos, no power. Everyone going crazy looking for water supply or gas supply. I got home and we had at least telephone connectivity from the wall, landline. I called, hey, Paco, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. What's up? Do you have a passport? Yes, I do. We're going to continue operations in Florida. We're going to rent an office building over there, and you're going with Diana. Do you want to go? And man, I didn't even think about it. I said yes. I didn't discuss it with my girlfriend at the time. I was living with my girlfriend at the time, nor with my family. I said yes, and I had to take a plane the next day from San Juan to Panama, stayed overnight in Panama to then go to the States in Orlando to continue operations. And thereafter, I was in Orlando until December. And that's when we finished. We had the Christmas vacations, right? That's when Paco said, hey, Gustavo, good work. Come in January. We'll talk. I'm going to make you an offer to come full time. And, ever since, it's crazy, man.
So it was only a couple months.
Yeah, a couple months. But, man, it was brutal. I did everything. And 99% of the things that I was doing were non-related to legal stuff.
Like what?
Working with boxes, T-shirts, bags, picking up people at the airport, answering emails, making calls, excuse me, working logistics, you name it, man. You name it. Putting up billboards, banners, working with registration process during the convention. I was like putting fire everywhere, and I didn't feel ashamed. I was a lawyer at the time. One would think, oh, this guy's a lawyer. He would be working with legal matters and that sort of stuff. I said to myself, man, I don't have no issues working with boxes, moving boxes here and there, organizing T-shirts, putting up banners, putting down banners. I come from humble beginnings. My family is, middle class type of, blue collar type of family. So I say, I'm going to prove these people that, I'm just a, regular guy, just, trying to progress and put the work in. And I think they saw that, and but man, it was brutal. They bit, they gave me hell, in a good way.
Right. How obviously looking back on it, if you just had to, I guess, make an educated guess, if that hurricane never hit, how long do you think it would be before Paco gave you a full-time position? Do you think it still would have been around the same time?
Maybe yes, maybe not. We would be speculating, but I think I would have done the same thing. Put the work in, the time, the effort, the will, and I think I think I would have the same result, maybe a little bit different. But I think that since I rolled the dice most of the times, when can you start? Tomorrow, okay. We're leaving to Panama. You want to go? Yes. Always. I didn't have a no. I think that he would say. I think he would say to himself, "This kid, he's interested, willing, and he's a risk taker. I like that." So, maybe those were the circumstances, But it was crazy. It was the story of how I got in. It's crazy.
And are you still with that same girlfriend?
No.
No? Was that the last straw? Like, what do you mean you were going to Florida?
No, the thing is that when I was pursuing the degree in Georgetown, she started also studying abroad, right? And she was trying to develop her English speaking skills and trying to get better academics. I was much more prepared academically than her, and she was trying to do the same thing. And then the position required me to stay in Puerto Rico, right? Because the main offices of the BO are in San Juan, and we had like a long distance relationship, but it was not working. And I was going to see her every 2 months, or she came down. We did, But man, with the constant traveling this business requires, it didn't work out. Unfortunately, I wish you nothing but the best, But it is what it is, man.
What was the first, when you became full-time and you started getting paid? You mentioned during the non-paid time frame and that internship, you were dealing with a lot of boxes, marketing or T-shirts, and not a lot of direct boxing stuff. But when you started getting paid, do you remember what the first exposure was to an actual, sport of boxing situation that you had to address?
Yeah. Sure, I remember my first day at post internship, right? They gave me it was like a big how do you call that? Like a big file,
Mm-hmm.
and that big file was full of boxing documents, like negotiation letters, purse bits, sanction letters, ruling from the championship committee, all that sort of framework, right? Internal framework. And I had to read and try to understand. But at that time, I had no guidance because Paco was never in the office. He was always traveling or having meetings outside the office. And one of the office directors, Ms. Diana Melendez, who still works in the BO, she was the one that took me by the hand every day. Okay, these are the steps. This is the way we make the fights. This is the negotiation process. These are the promoters. These are the key players. This is the registration procedure. She took me by the hand under her wing, if you will, and that's how I started developing. And Paco, thereafter, he started showing me this, the how do you call that? The chess mastering stuff, how to do the moves, the behind the scenes stuff with the promoters, managers, etc. But since I was learning at the time, I was, fairly new. They took me step by step, and up to date, there are some things that there are some things that Paco makes the call because he's the president, and there are other things that he delegates. Gustavo, do this, you know what to do. So it's been a constant evolving and learning process thus far. Yeah.
Are you the only counsel employed full time?
Yeah.
So did they have anybody, counsel or otherwise legal?
They still have a outside attorney for court matters, that sort of stuff. He's been with the BO for many years. So when there's litigation, he's the go-to guy because he's there. He's more experienced than I in those matters, and he's been there for many years before myself. So he works those matters specifically. I work the day-to-day inner workings, legal stuff, operations of the WBO with Paco and the office personnel.
When, as you were progressing in your time there, especially beginning full time, was there ever a moment when you got maybe a little starstruck meeting, maybe an Oscar de la Hoya or any bigger personalities that, you said you were a casual fan, so you knew Tito Trinidad, Miguel Cotto,
Sure.
and all those guys.
Sure.
Was there ever a moment during your young career there where you met these guys and you're just like, oh, wow, I'm right here right now?
Yeah, I met Miguel Cotto in the dinner. Dinner or lunch. After we had a boxing presser, right? It was a WBO title fight here in Puerto Rico, regional title, and we went to the press conference. Afterwards, we went to have lunch. And I remember I went to this place in Guaynabo, another town, and I saw Miguel. And I was like, wow, Miguel Cotto. And he's, I remember I was in awe. And after the lunch, I asked for a picture. He Cotto with the hand here, like a boxer, and he was, he was very kind with the picture. And, that was my first encounter with a huge boxing star, Miguel Cotto. Now I see him whenever I say, "Hey, Miguel, how you doing?" Now it's another dynamic, because we've met each other, we've shared many meals together, we've traveled together. So now if I see him, let's say in a lunch or a gathering, "Hey, Miguel," we sit around and we don't even talk about boxing. Maybe we talk about golf, we talk about baseball, maybe we talk a little bit about the type of beer he likes or whatever. Very cool dynamic.
You mentioned, like you run like essentially day-to-day operations at the WBO and all that. What does a typical day look like for you if you had to try to, put it together?
Okay, a Monday. Monday, you get to the office, right? I get to my office, start opening emails, start seeing emails from promoters, officials. Let's say, for example, we had fights on Saturday, right? And it's a world title fight on, a Monday. You check whether the promoter has wire transfer the sanctioning fees. If the paperwork was duly executed by the supervisors and returned to the office, answering emails, making phone calls for the next fights coming up, calling officials, verifying their availability and willingness to receive appointments, making the final conditions that are going to be set forth in the sanction letters, like, okay, this guy's got a mandatory within the next 6 months. Let me check the status. Let me issue the corresponding notice letters. Check the negotiations of those fights that are subject to those procedures to see the timelines. The social work, where are we with these initiatives, boxing, gyms, and that sort of stuff. So a Monday is very, very busy. I do a lot of things: calls, emails, follow-ups, check the status of the payments. Call Pac always. Hey, here's where we are with these fights, these promoters, etc. It depends, but mostly Mondays are very tough.
Do you travel to every event?
Not every event. Every time he travels, I travel with him. Sometimes when he doesn't want to travel, okay, go you. But most of the big fights that he goes, we go. I go with him. Yep.
What would you say up until this point? How many years have you been the in-house counsel now, up as of today?
Since 2017. Yeah, that's almost 7 years. 7 years. Yeah.
So as of today, what has been the most challenging situation that you had to address in boxing?
That's a good question, man. I think there are multiple. First, the different scenarios when complexities, when you have different players with conflict of interests. Like, for example, when you have multiple sanctioning bodies involved, with two fighters from different promoters, and there's a rotation system for the mandatories and who's first or who's next, and who's going to be working the officials, or wait, there's a step aside agreement, and if like different, I would say, yeah, the different complexities of those delicate scenarios, right? That is high level stuff. When you need to speak with Arum or Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn, the big players, Heyman, and those delicate issues come up. That's when Paco's experience comes in. As the years have passed, I've gotten the chance to see how to sort those issues. But basically, I would say that you have a set of rules. If you follow the rules, you won't have any issues, right? That's the way I've seen it thus far after learning those, after living those experiences. The other experience would say is you can't let nobody push you in boxing. I don't know if I make myself, understandable. Understand. I mean, like, for example, some people want to not jump you, but you got to hold your ground. That's what I'm saying. With promoters, managers, advisors, sometimes they would, no. Don't threaten me, or don't try to, tell me, but I did this for you or whatever. No, don't do that.
Like
I
a
had
bully?
once, and he's a good friend of mine. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a good friend of mine. He has fighters. I remember he was in Puerto Rico, and he had a regional title fight. I was a supervisor for the fight, all right? He called me a couple hours before the fight. Hey, Gustavo, what's up, buddy? Hey, how you doing, my man? We were the supervisor for tonight's fight, right? Yeah. Hey, man, my kid, he's in a tough fight. I've invested in him. I just wanted to see whether you could at least make me some signals to see how are we on the scorecards. And I automatically stopped and, hey, man, no. Don't do this. We have a friendship. Don't F it up, I'm not that type of guy. This is not right. This is unethical. I'm a lawyer. I have, ethical duty standards and principles, and I can't do that. Don't do this. This last time we will talk about the subject. And he was like ashamed. No, please don't tell Paco. I had to tell him, man. Hey, Paco, once I got to the building, hey, Paco, boss, and he told me, Gustavo, never let anyone, this business, try to put you down or try to, make some sort of extortions or that sort of conduct. Your friends are your friends, but sometimes your friends could be your enemies as well. Put you in tough spots. When you have to say no, you say no. When you have to say yes, you say yes. You play by the rules, and you won't have any issues. So those are the couple of circumstances that I've faced thus far that have been challenging.
Have you ever, you've dealt with certain situations like that, but have you ever feared for your life in the sport?
No. Not at all.
Not like mobsters or anything like that?
No. There's a lot of people that, speculate and are a little bit skeptical of how the boxing behind the scenes works. At least from the WBO side, we're very transparent. We publish all of our rulings, 99% of them. We publish them in our website, social media. There are some rulings we can't publish because of either medical issues that are confidential, right? Anti-doping matters, which are confidential. Maybe there are some agreements between the parties involved that want to keep those matters confidential. So, but 99% of all of our rulings or determinations, announcements, we make them public, and we try to be as fully transparent as possible. So, but I haven't seen anything. There's one more I forgot to mention. We had a meeting with a promoter from Asia, right? He wanted to come to the WBO office, right? Promoter, we scheduled the meeting. He wanted to meet Paco, the office personnel. He came to the office, and he brought some gifts, right? And, as a courtesy, you receive them. Thank you. Very kind. Welcome. Sit down. And the promoter, he pulled out an envelope, right? And he said, here's a contribution to the WBO. And I remember Paco had a concerned face, and he said, what is this? No, this is a contribution. And the Asian promoter came with a translator. So the translator was like, "Hey, sir, this is a in goodwill." And Paco said, "No, we don't work this way. This is illegal, right? We have a federal law, and we have other state laws, and we don't do this, you know." And the promoter, he was like in shock because he was doing it like in goodwill. He was not requesting anything in exchange. It was just like something ordinarily for them.
Like a cultural thing.
Like maybe a cultural thing or a business type of thing over there. I don't know. But that was, you know, and I saw that with my own eyes. I was like, oh, wow. And then he said, oh, you use it for he was like, okay, so use it for the WBO social program. No. Take it and you use it for whatever you want, you know? I've seen those things. So, you know, but that's an exceptional circumstance. That does not happen. But that's at least from the WBO side. And those are, you know, things that you have to, you know, learn to live with, you know?
Gustavo, is that something, you know, friends and family warned you when you got into the business? Because, you know, people say it's cutthroat like that.
Yeah, man. Many people, particularly friends, they were like, "Oh wow, boxing, that's so awesome." But most of the people are fans or friends, and they question when the decisions, right? When there's like a controversial decision, oh, somebody got paid off. That is a robbery. The judges, but it's simply that they don't understand how the system works. That there's a scoring criteria. How the officials are assigned, selected, appointed. Why does one official sees the fight this way and the other way? Why are there three officials? So, you know, those are primarily the concerns. I haven't received any questions either from family members or friends about personal security issues or the mob or excuse me, something like that. It's more like I got friends like call me, "Hey, what was that? What happened with that decision?" Like, for example, Ortiz Lopez, I got friends. No way Lopez won that fight. How was that possible? You know, I'm like, "Hey, man, we'll schedule a lunch and I'll explain to you how the scoring system works. Maybe, you know, we'll see the scorecards. I'll explain to you how that works." And you know, those are basic maybe concerns from friends and family members, but nothing related with security nor extortion or that sort of criminal conduct. Nothing at all.
Is there a procedure for, you know, if Ortiz appealed that decision?
Well, Ortiz can appeal the decision, but it's highly challenging to overturn that decision because, and that's as an attorney that people don't know, the decisions lie exclusively with the local commission that governs the bout. In other words, the Nevada State Athletic Commission. That is the regulatory body that has jurisdiction over that contest, over that fight, the bout. Once those scores are rendered and lodged with the commission, those scores, number one, are presumed correct, right? Number two, Ortiz would have to resort directly to the commission to try to overturn those results. So in the absence of fraud, gross negligence, deceit, corruption, those type of elements, I see it very challenging to overturn official bout results. Let's say, for example, Ortiz files an appeal with the BO, right, for an immediate rematch. I don't think, I'm speculating, but I don't think he's gonna get his petition granted because there's got to be some sort of elements and circumstances involved to justify ordering a rematch, right? We legally cannot overturn the result. We can order an immediate rematch between the parties, right? But again, we have this policy per our rules that we don't order the immediate rematch unless there is extraordinary circumstance, like a misapplication of the rules of boxing that would cause an injustice, right? let's say, for example, the losing contestant produced a knockdown. The referee didn't see that knockdown. That knockdown was the difference. The scorecard. Let's say the referee didn't admonish one of the fighters with multiple intentional fouls. He didn't determine a knockdown where there was an evident knockdown. Different elements of misapplication of the rules of boxing. Under those scenarios, we would certainly order an immediate rematch. It depends. It's a case-by-case scenario, but I don't think Ortiz got a case. What will be the argument? That the scorecards don't reflect his performance? Well, it depends, Remember, scoring is subjective. That's why you have three judges. Two of them had the fight very close for Lopez. The other had a little bit more wide, 117, 111 for Lopez as well. I don't know. We will have to wait and see. But I don't foresee it happening.
Since you've been there at the WBO, staying on this topic, Gustavo, has there been any appeals that were actually overturned?
Yeah. We had an appeal. You remember the World Boxing Super Series tournament in I think it was in Latvia.
Mm-hmm.
It was promoted by the Sauerlands, remember?
Right.
They did remember when the cruiserweights, when Usyk became undisputed at cruiserweight, remember with the Muhammad Ali trophy and all that, which was a cool tournament. We had a cruiserweight championship fight. It was Mightiest Bradis against Christopher Glowacki. Remember the Polish?
Yeah.
That fight was chaos. You had a Latvian fighter with a Polish fighter fighting in Latvia. The crowd was going crazy. And I think there were a couple of instances whereby the Polak got hit behind the head with a rabbit punch. That suffered a knockdown. The referee didn't call it a rabbit punch, an illegal punch. Then there was one moment of action that the bell had rang. The referee didn't hear the bell. The fighters were still engaging. Brady's hit the Polak. The Polak then suffered another knockdown. There was another instance where one of the Brady's camp, if I recall correctly, got on the apron and starting. It was a mess. Oh, and the famous elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Famous elbow from Brady's to Glowacki. And that caused Glowacki to go down, and then Brady's hit him with another rabbit punch. It was crazy. And they filed an appeal, right, to overturn the result. And I remember it was very interesting because Latvia didn't have a boxing commission. And you would say, well, how does that work? Well, the promoters contracted another commission from another country and brought it to Latvia to regulate the event. So the fighters were fighting in a country with a license issued by another country. You see?
Yeah.
I think it was the Austrian Boxing Commission that was regulating the event, and they issued the license to the fighters, something like that. I remember that they were questioning the officials designated by the WBO, particularly the referee. They wanted to overturn the result. They wanted to order an immediate rematch because their argument was that in light of those events, Glowacki lost the fight and therefore his opportunity to win the title. And I remember I wrote the resolution after the championship committee voted on the matter. We agreed with their arguments that there was a misapplication of the rules of boxing, that the referee made these mistakes, right? And there was a manifest injustice done to Glowacki. But we had conditioned the rematch to take place after the completion of the tournament, to allow the tournament to allow the fighters from the semifinals to face each other in the finals, which Brady's had to fight at that time. I think it was, I'm not sure whether it was Junior Dorticos, somebody. I don't know. I don't recall. But the Glowacki team filed an appeal. And we have this system, the WBO, all the world title fights, negotiation letters, purse bids, sanction letters, rulings, they come from the championship committee, which to make an analogy, it's like the court for the district court, right? After the committee renders a ruling, the adverse party has 14 days to appeal that ruling to the grievance committee, which is like the appellate court internally, right? So they filed an appeal, and we have an independent panel of lawyers from different. One is from Puerto Rico, one is from LA, and the other is from, I think, New York, if I recall correctly. They're a different panel, right? They open what is called a docketing order. They set the timeline for the submittals in writing, conference calls, all that stuff. So they held oral arguments in the appeal. So they hosted the appeal in Puerto Rico. So the lawyers came, the Glowacki people came to Puerto Rico with their lawyer, as well as the Brady's team was via Zoom, right? And the grievance committee ruled 2-1, overturning the championship committee.
Wow.
Ordering the immediate rematch. Our argument was, hey, man, the championship committee's rationale was, you're right, but considering that there is a tournament ongoing, right, in order to allow the tournament to complete and unify all the titles for the better of boxing, for let it be, and you'll fight the winner. You're not your chance to fight will remain, but it will a little bit more time to wait, not to intercede or what would be the word interfere with the tournament, which in essence wanted to create continue the undisputed thing, right? But he enforces right as per the ruling by the appellate committee, the grievance committee, and Bradis simply relinquished the title. He said, I'm going to continue the tournament for the remaining titles and the elite trophy and the huge purse. I'm not going to comply with the grievance committee's ruling. So he vacated the title, and Glowacki then fought for the vacant title with another contestant.
Wow. So
that happens. We've had decisions overturned. It's not the norm, but it happens, and it's good that it happens, because some people say, "Oh, these people are like rubber stamps," So no, they're completely independent. If they see it one way and they want to issue a ruling that way, be my guest.
You talked about earlier, Gustavo, about you've been in the position for quite a few years now, and you've dealt with different players within the boxing world: Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Frank Warren, De La Hoya, his team, Al Heyman. Out of those, obviously the biggest personalities were obviously well known to hardcore boxing fans and all that. How would you describe each of those personalities? Starting with, let's just say Oscar De La Hoya.
With Golden Boy, I speak directly to Eric Gomez. He's the man behind the wheel in Golden Boy Promotions. I don't speak with Oscar. I've only met him once. We had a meeting in his hotel room in Vegas for this. This was by the time Canelo was fighting Kovalev, right?
Okay.
We had a meeting. It was Oscar De La Hoya, Eric Gomez. I think Robert Diaz was there at that time. Paco, myself. And Paco, he I was still learning at the time. I'm still am, but I was, recently at the WBO, and Paco was talking with Eric and Oscar about the fight and what were the implications and what were the scenarios of the WBO, etc. And I was just there watching and learning. But now I talk directly to Eric. I call him, "Hey Eric, how you doing? What's up? What's the status on this fight? What do you want to do? Okay, no, we can do this. We cannot do this. The purse bid, this is a split. These are the conditions. Oh, I cannot grant you this petition because he does not qualify. That sort of
Gustavo, can you hear us?
yeah, loud and clear.
Kind of frozen.
Yeah. Now I can see you. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
That's my relationship with Eddie Gomez. With Eddie, I have a great relationship. I talk to him when there are delicate situations. I remember when Usyk Joshua were in the midst of their negotiations, and I had to talk to Eddie regarding the split because Usyk is a super champion. Joshua wasn't at that time, something like that, and what was going to be a split for the purse bid. And we've talked every once in a while, but now I talk directly to Sean Palmer, another lawyer from the Matchroom, Kevin Rooney, he's now a matchmaker, Tom Dallas, the UK guy who's now with Eddie Hearn. Top Rank, I talk every once in a while with Carl Moretti. He's like the man behind the scenes, vice president of Top Rank. Heyman people, Tom Brown. I talk to Tom Brown every once in a while. Let me see what other players. Frank Warren with Georgie Warren, his son. He's now like the man behind the wheel. They're like Aram, Warren, those legends, they speak with Paco. You see? And I understand that, right? Because they want to speak with their contemporaries, the guy that they've always conducted business with. So I have no issues with that. I can it's like seniority, But those are the basically the people I talk to on a weekly basis.
Gustavo, just explain to us the new WBO drug testing procedure.
Okay, we don't have a procedure per se because we're not experts in that matter. We simply have this policy that the fighter, regardless of the circumstances, the fighter is responsible for those substances that it consumes. So let's say a fighter next month tests positive for a PED, right? No. And his argument is, I didn't know that this meat, for example, or was contaminated. Our policy is, hey man, you're responsible. You have to do your due diligence. You have to be careful. We have to take some action, because there seems to be a lack of uniformity in that regard on testing procedures. What are the implications if somebody tests positive? So since we're not experts, our rules state that we rely on the commission. The commission that regulates the bout conducts the testing either before, after, or both, right? And the commission reports to the promoter and the sanctioning body. And thereafter, we make a decision. Like in the, I know you're asking the question related to the Baumgartner case. Baumgartner, she allegedly tested positive for a banned substance. And the testing agency, which was called, which is called Drug Free Sport, they were contracted by the promoter, Matchroom Boxing, to conduct the test. And the fight was conducted in Detroit, Michigan. They collected the results. They reported the results to the promoter. The promoter thereafter notifies the sanctioning bodies. So this, what we do is the WBO, we receive the documents, we examine the documents, and we issue what is called a show cause notice, which is like a legal document telling the fighter, hey, fighter, on this date, we were notified that there was an adverse finding consistent with A, B, and C related to this fight. Per the evidence showed, there is an alleged positive test related to this. Therefore, you have an X amount of days to show cause as to why we shouldn't strip you from the title or take any corrective action pursuant to our rules. And then that's called a due process, right? You got to give due process not only to the fighter, to the aggrieved party, and you have to include all relevant parties, the promoter, the commission, everyone, because all of them are what in legal terms are called indispensable parties, which in general terms means that you may issue a ruling that you may issue a ruling that can affect a party who is not included in the issue at stake. So that's why we include everyone and we notify everyone. So we're simply adopting this policy, but we don't have that power or the expertise, I would say, to determine whether the evidence is conclusive, whether there was intent, fault, negligence, because we're not experts, we're not scientists. So in order to avoid any potential confusion or concerns or, speculative assertions by fans, the general public, we rather have a more clear, strict liability policy whereby if the fighter tests positives, no matter the circumstances, we're not obliged to prove intent, fault, negligence, that sort of legal facts,
Do you think we'll get uniformity like that across the board eventually with everyone?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because it's such a technical issue, right? And the sanctioning bodies, remember, our jurisdiction is limited to one or two things: the belt, right? And rating fighters within a rating system. We don't regulate the event. We don't regulate testing procedures. We don't regulate weighing procedures. Our jurisdiction, the scope of our jurisdiction is limited only to the regulation of the title. The fighter wins the belt. He has to defend it within the next amount of days. And these are the rules when you're a champion. And these are the rules when you're the challenger, right? And these are the rules to get rated and go up and down, etc. We don't beyond that, we have no jurisdiction, no authority. And in some, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but if the big four, WBO, WBC, if you guys all said the same thing, that's what the fighters are fighting for, and that's where the money comes from.
Yeah, I think although we have great relationship with all the sanctioning bodies, particularly now to date, each sanctioning body has their own rules, right? There are going to be some subjects that we may agree, and some we won't agree. Like, for example, the BO has a policy only one champion per division. We don't the interim titles, regular titles, silver, diamond, franchise. We respect what they do, but that's their prerogative. But we don't, we don't agree with that type of belt system, right? They have a different view of things. We agree to disagree in that regard. And I would say the same thing pertaining to the doping matters. The BC has they have what's called the clean boxing program with VADA. They have maybe more strict sort of system. I think they ruled on the Baumgartner that they couldn't conclusively confirm that she ingested that substance with intent. That's something very technical, right? That you would need to demonstrate with scientific evidence and other sort of reliable evidence and facts to reach that conclusion. I think they have a panel of experts in that matter. We don't. And remember, Paco's an attorney. So from a legal standpoint, in order to avoid any potential liability with the WBO, we rather stay on the side of those type of issues. Like, let the experts work with those issues. We're not experts. We'll rely on the experts. So that's. I don't know how the IBF works in that regard, nor the BA. As to whether there will be a uniformity, that will be the perfect scenario. But we're talking about the ideal scenario, right? It's the same thing with the rating system, the mandatories, purse bids. It would be, the ideal scenario, the perfect scenario would be uniformity, right? But unfortunately, again, everyone has their own rules, their own agenda. I mean, from a business standpoint, their own structure. So in some aspects, we may agree and establish uniformity amongst us internally, but in others, I don't see it happening.
Gustavo, how do you and I'm referencing specifically when Canelo Alvarez was in that situation with the WBC, when that drama created, when I think they wanted to order him to fight Gennady Golovkin, and he didn't. He didn't. Yeah, he said in interviews, he's like, I'm not going to let an organization say what I need to do. How do you address something like that, especially when the fighter is such a high profile, like somebody like him, and you guys have such a integral part in the sport with the world titles?
That's a good question. What we do in our case, in the WBO's case, there are certain champions, key players like Canelo, Usyk, Crawford, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor. Let me see. Yeah, I would say those big players in boxing. That we, in order to avoid having any potential difficulties to work with them, based on their merits and their accomplishments, we recognize them with super champion rights and privileges. It's not a title, it's a designation, right? And for example, a fighter who is recognized as super champion is conferred certain rights and privileges. And one of those privileges and rights is that he could do a mandatory within an 18-month period in order to give him flexibility to make the fights that he wants or what the general public wants. Like, for example, Canelo. Canelo could be the biggest star in boxing, but he has to abide by our rules. But in order to give him some leeway to work and not pressure him so much in order to make a decision, we use that provision in our rules. Always, obviously, he has to qualify in order to in order to allow him the opportunity to make the fights that maybe he wants or the general public wants or the TV, etc., and avoid any potential conflict with those type of marquee champions. Like, for example, the IBF. The IBF recently stripped Crawford. I think they had an issue with due mandatories for a couple of months, and they had to proceed. Well, maybe that was their call. Maybe that was, per their rules, that was the applicable decision. In my view, I think there could have been maybe another way to resolve the controversy, to avoid stripping Crawford, and now he's not on. Everyone knows he's undisputed regardless of the title, but those type, you got to be careful. But there are fighters that can, like Canelo, he can say, I don't want the titles, but the titles give it that prestige, recognition. The fans want to see the titles. The TV wants the titles. So there may be one or two fighters at that level that could say, you know what, but that's the exception to the norm, you know?
And then Gustavo, in terms of, obviously it's with multiple sanctioning bodies, WBC, WBO, WBA, IBF, and all that. There's relationships that you guys have with all different personalities and people throughout the sport. How does Paco react, or you guys as a team at the WBO to, every sanctioning body gets criticism, but WBO gets the criticism like, hey, you guys are associated with this promoter mostly. You guys are always sanctioning. How do you guys respond to something like that?
Well, we don't have no response, to be honest with you, because it's more a business relationship. Like, for example, if you have a client, you have a business, right? Let's say your podcast is your business, and you have an endorsement deal with a particular entity, and that's your partner, and you've been with him for many years, and you have a successful and relationship with him. The same happens with the sanctioning bodies. The BO has a perfect long-standing relationship with Top Rank, Queensberry. Matchroom has a more direct relationship with maybe the IBF and the BA. The BC has a more close relationship with PBC. It's business relationships. But now we have a great relationship with everyone, even Heyman. I don't know if you recall, PBC once didn't recognize the BO title. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we remember that.
And we had to, push, and through third parties trying to, hey, the BO's legit. These guys are serious people. They play by the rules. Give them a chance. And also, again, our champions. How could you recognize Thurman, Garcia, Spence, and not Crawford? Come on, man. You remember?
Yeah.
They had when they had the welterweights fighting each other. Oh, here are the top welterweights. They had Thurman, Spence, and Garcia, like the champions, right? And they didn't mention Crawford. And turns out who was the best of them all? Crawford.
Right.
So our champions, either you like them or not. I'm trying to be, I'm a little bit, I got to be
diplomatic,
and objective. But you compare our champions, and we have the best fighters in our roster.
Have you spoken to Al Heyman directly since you've been?
I have never.
No,
never.
Oh, okay, so you guys have just communicated with him based on intermediaries.
Paco has spoken with him, yeah, but most of the time we speak with Tom Brown,
right?
Or maybe another third party who makes direct contact with Heyman, but that's no issue. But now we have Crawford with Heyman. We've had other champions with him, so we have a great relationship with them now.
Who would you say in your position that is the most persistent in terms of contacting you or your office, on a consistent basis, but you have a lot of respect for them, but they're always contacting you for one reason or another, or to follow up on this? Like, who's that one personality in boxing? Like, oh yeah, they reach out all the time.
Sean Gibbons.
Yeah.
Sean Gibbons is maybe the hardest working man I've ever met in boxing, man. And he's a great guy, man. Highly knowledgeable. Has great relationship with literally everyone. He has champions fighting for all the sanctioning bodies, fighters with every promoter. He's a character, personality, but he's also a good guy. I'll tell you one thing he did for me, man. I have a youngest brother, right? At the time he was living in Cuba. He was getting some medical treatment over there. And remember, Cuba has the embargo thing. And if you travel to Cuba or from Cuba to the United States, you need to get to a international destination in order to enter the U.S. You can't just fly from Cuba to U.S. I don't know what's the status right now, but by that time it was like that. There were some restrictions, travel restrictions. And my youngest brother got to Mexico, from Cuba to Mexico, in order to get to Puerto Rico. And when he got to Mexico, immigration was full. So he lost his flight. And he didn't have a credit card. He didn't have very few cash, all alone by himself. And I didn't know what he texted me, hey, I'm here. You know, they gave me another flight for the next day. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I called, I didn't know what to do, right? I don't know nobody in Mexico, but Sean does. I called Sean and hey man, I need a favor. Do you know somebody? He said, don't worry. Tell me the name of your brother. Send me a picture of him and I'll take care of you. And he called Juan Carlos Torres, which is now a very good friend of mine. He used to work with Sanford. He's based in Tijuana. And he called me, hey, Gustavo, how you doing? Tell me what's going on. Sean told me. I told him what was going on. And he contacted a third party who picked up my brother at the airport, took him to the hotel, paid the hotel, then took him back the other day. My brother was able to get home safely. And he was in Cancun, which at the time was a little bit, all by himself. And I tried, excuse me, like, hey, Sean, how much I owe you for the nothing. Juan Carlos, nothing. And that's a favor that I can never pay back, man. He did that for me. And without no ulterior motives, No, give me this or rank me this fighter or give me a title shot or put this guy in, like he did it legitimately from the heart. And I thank him every time. And also Juan Carlos. So if they're seeing this, thank you.
A couple more questions. We know we've had you for quite a while, Gustavo. Obviously, we appreciate your valuable time. Since you've been there, who is the fighter that you've met who has the sharpest mind for the business side of the sport?
That's an interesting question. I've never thought of that. Business side of the sport fighter. Oof. Let me see. Fighter. Oh man, that's a tough one. I don't know. I could say Amanda Serrano, her manager. I know he gets a lot of backlash a bit from the fans because sometimes he's so passionate. But I gotta give it to him. The way he's taking Amanda to another stratosphere and signing Amanda to Jake Paul and doing, making the concepts from, equality with women, the 3-minute, 12 rounds, he waited until the right moment to face Katie Taylor for the right payday. I don't know if you recall they were going to fight in the bubble and not in the excuse me. It was like a bubble type of format in Essex, in
Fight camp?
Headquarters. Fight camp, yep.
Yeah.
But he didn't accept those terms, and then he did the fight in New York, which was one of the best fights I've ever witnessed. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, Madison Square Garden. Woo, unbelievable atmosphere. I think he's very, very knowledgeable about the business in female boxing. How to do the changes, how to work it out, the sponsorship, the deals, how to put Amanda with the fighters, the promoter, the Jake Paul thing. I think he's one of the most, smartest guys in that regard, But a male side, I'll think about it and let you know. That was a good one. You caught me off guard on that one.
We'll be waiting for your answer, however long it takes.
Yeah, sure.
What's your guys' reaction? I don't know if maybe you guys had a time to discuss it internally, you and Paco, or you guys in the team. Obviously, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia just announced their own version of a world title for the heavyweight matchup.
Yeah.
What was your guys' reaction to that?
Oh, we were not. I would say we were not surprised at all. I think that we were expecting some sort of special belt done by the Saudi people. In fact, that belt is going to have the 4 logos incorporated. They requested our authorization to use the logos, to have the logos incorporated in the belt. So regardless, although each sanctioning body will be awarding their respective belts to the champion, probably His Excellency Turkish will give the belt to the winner, that special custom-made undisputed belt. So I don't think we don't have no objections with that. On the contrary, we welcome it. If it has our logos, it's a special occasion. It's history in the making. So why not?
Have you been over there since they started doing fights? Not yet?
We were leaving tomorrow. to Qatar. Thank God we're staying because I'm tired, man. That Vegas trip kills me every time. I don't know why. The change of the time zone kills me.
Yeah, because 4 hours difference, right?
It's 4 hours, but I don't know what it takes me a couple of days to like recoup. And most of the time I travel back, I get a little bit of fever and tiredness. I don't know why. It's Vegas. I don't know why. But we were leaving tomorrow, but they're going to reschedule for May 18th, and we'll be there for sure.
And then one last question. I want to end on this question, Gustavo. Looking forward into the future in the sport of boxing, and obviously in your position, what's something that you want to see, or maybe that you and Paco or Paco wants to see, develop in the sport of boxing that would better the sport going forward?
Man, I think that the trend of the unifications and the undisputed thing, the best fighting the best. That should be the constant trend. And everyone, all the key players in the industry, the promoters, managers, the sanctioning bodies, promoting that the best fight the best, right? And there are going to be some certain circumstances that maybe some fights don't get made at a certain point in time. And it's because not that the fighters don't want them, it's because of the economics behind them, right? Some fighters want high guarantees. Maybe in some occasions that could be possible, and others don't. And other potential scenarios will be that fighters get involved in the business, like becoming partners, involved in the winnings and in the earnings and the losses. A small guarantee, but higher percentages in the upside, pay-per-views, etc. But I think we're currently on a good place. The last 2 years, we've had great fights. Davis, Garcia, Lomachenko, Haney, Usyk, Joshua, Canelo, Charlo, Canelo Plant, Vaquero Navarrete, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, Crawford Spence, Teofimo Lomachenko, Teofimo Cambosos. I think we've had great fights. Inoue, unifying 118, 122. Great fights. What other? Let's see. Yeah. I think that's the best fighting the best, man. That's I think that's the way to go. You can't beat that for all the titles.
Absolutely. Well, Gustavo, we appreciate your valuable time. We're glad that we finally were able to get you on here on the last round podcast. Before we completely sign off here, Gustavo, do you have any parting words for the listeners, or maybe any fighters or managers or any executives who might be listening to this, and you have any parting words for them? Anything that you want to say to the, maybe a group that as a whole like that?
Maybe I can say something to future colleagues, right? Or people wanting to enter the business. Just try to push and try to create your own scenario, right? Your opportunities. Sometimes we look for opportunities that are there, but they're there, but you don't see them. You need to create your own, your own opportunity. And it may sound a little bit cliche, but that's what happened to me. I wanted the opportunity. I pushed for it and I got it. So that's my best advice for up and coming, individuals that are wanting to pursue a career in sports or in boxing, particularly boxing, because boxing works like I would say it's like, somebody who knows somebody, right? And that somebody opens the door for you, either through an introduction or call this guy who knows that guy. So in my case, I didn't know nobody, literally nobody. I had never been to a boxing big event. I had never been to a boxing gym. I just simply wanted to pursue that route, do an internship. I pushed for it. I was pestering the people at the BO, and I just, I got the chance, I got the ball, and it's like in life. Sometimes a train comes in, makes it stop. Either you jump on it or you don't. I think I jumped on it, and I'm seeing the fruits of my labor thus far. Yeah.
Just keep calling. Just keep calling.
Keep calling, man. If it doesn't come up on the first chance, try a second chance, try a third chance, go to a show. If you see the promoter, call him out, or somebody, hey, I'm here, leave a resume, an email, send a resume through mail, do whatever it takes. Try to think out of the box. And somebody will acknowledge it and maybe give you an opportunity.
And what are your social media handles, Gustavo?
You can find me in, let me check, I don't recall. In Twitter, I'm at Olivieri, that's Olivieri, and law, and Twitter. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. And on Instagram, it's, let me see. It's my full name, Gustavo Olivieri Miranda. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter.
Sounds good.
So you can reach me at the office anytime, either through phone call or email. I'll gladly assist you in whatever you need. Yeah.
Sounds good. Mike, as we normally do, crossing the finish line here for this episode, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
And we are at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter, or now known as X.
Now known as X, right? Yeah. We're still trying to get used to that, but it's a slow progression, but it's happening. So for our guest of the week in the in-house counsel for the World Boxing Organization, also known as the WBO, Gustavo Olivieri. For my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.